DYZTOPIA, a post-human RPG. God, I love this game. This game rocks hard. It's so fucking cool. Honestly, if y'all 100% trust and believe in me, just pause this video, go buy the game, play through it, and come back. I've been meaning to tell y'all about this game for a while now, and I'm so glad I finally get to now. DYZTOPIA is a post-human RPG released on January 5th of 2023 by Based. I don't know how they prefer it being pronounced. I think they made like a Bass tier list, so I'll just say whatever comes to my mind the first time upon reading the words. So what's a post-human RPG? Well, it means that it's past y'all humans watching this. Sorry gamers, this one's for the monsters. I'm just kidding, y'all can play this. Promise. But as the intro states, this game takes place in a world where the earth has fallen into ruins due to a demon invasion. This invasion had wiped humanity to the point of extinction, the humans' defense ultimately being futile in fighting back. That is except one last human, known as the hero. During the final battle, the hero either won triumphantly, lost horribly, or made a ceasefire agreement with the demons. These three options are ours for the choosing, as this determines the game's difficulty, and does affect some stuff that happens in the game, as this is very much so a game about choice. Regardless, humanity has still been destroyed. A religious group rises from the shadows with the goal to bring back the humans. To do so will take the power of the Zodiacs. The same 12 stones the demon used against humanity will now be used to save them. And that is our goal. To assist the last beacon of hope in restoring humanity. That is what you want to do, right? This places us in the shoes of the main character, Akira Sakamoto, a smog zodiac hunter. I can't tell what look y'all are giving me right now, but I know you're probably confused what a smog is. Well, after humanity's downfall from the invasion, multiple new species came to be, all with unique characteristics and traits, one of these being smogs like Akira. Akira is part of a group known as the Zodiac Hunters, led by Zeta Corps, the nation ruled by President Zaz. As a Zodiac Hunter, their mission is to go out and gather these stones in order to resurrect humanity. However, this is also Akira's last day of being a hunter, no longer being interested in being in the association, and prepared to resign. Working on a mission with the number 2 hunter and friend, Barbados, alongside the president's son, Detritus, they returned successful with a Zodiac stone, Pisces. Upon entering Zeta's HQ, Akira is informed that President Zaz wants to speak directly to them. The fear of the worst is true, as Zaz declines Akira's resignation, ordering that Akira must go on one last mission.
You know what your problem is, Akira. You're too damn useful.
Farther adding on that Akira is nothing but a resource to him. So much to my surprise when I first played through this game, the description isn't a joke. It really is a game about trying to quit your job, which is what Akira tries to do, escape from the grasp of Zeta, exploring all sorts of new locations in the world, meeting new allies such as the mysterious Crow, Kiyota with the cool plant powers, the powerful Esper Runi and her lightning-fast cook of a brother Edgar, the escort assassin Genesis and her ultra-gamer brother bard Fredek, and many more allies and enemies sent to hunt them down from Zeta. Like Robon! Akira ultimately having the goal to do what they want rather than being told what to do, turning the fight against Zeta Corps and collecting the Zodiac stones themselves to stop the president, who is only interested in reviving humanity at the expense of everyone else. I hope that didn't spoil too much near the end there, but that is sort of the sacrifice you have to undeniably make when watching this video, is that I will be showing off later party members. It's not something I can particularly hide, and depending on your choices, some of these characters I'm showing won't even be in your party, so your playthrough will still be different. Also, plot-wise, I mean, it is kind of the group of goofers grabbing the X amount of smackos to stop the big evil empire, which I mean, I never had a problem with. Gives us an excuse to see a ton of locations, and lets these dope-ass characters shine. And let me tell ya, with characters like these, I am all for a plot focused on them. So just off the bat, y'all can tell that this game has a pretty unique look. I mean, it's not often we see a fully 2D RPG, as in on a 2D plane. If I didn't show you any fights or tell you that this was an RPG, would y'all think that this was a platformer? It's definitely going for its own style, which I appreciate. I like that it doesn't urge me to draw obvious comparisons. It's just the artist's own styles. I like all the character animations, and how the portraits have them facing forward with the live notification at the bottom right, as if looking towards a camera on television, ready to give some sort of press speech. The areas all have distinct palettes and items to them, from the more nature-heavy zones to that of the more futuristic, floating plants of the big cities. It wasn't too uncommon I'd find myself looking at the background like, wow, there's a lot of detail here. The character designs themselves are pretty dope too. From all the playable characters' looks influenced by the different species, to the vast number of enemies. Special shoutouts to the appearances of the Zodiacs. Like, these are some sick ass designs. I mean, peep the dapper ash tree. Nice fit, gamer. I love all the battle animations as well. From the vast number of spells to the utilization of the hype mechanic, changing the appearance of both enemies and player characters, alongside reactions when afflicted by status effects. A lot of these add to how satisfying a lot of these attacks are to use, along with the sound design. Also, Crow with the umbrella is just cute as hell. So I'm a little stuck on the music. There's a lot of names tied to this project, and it seems like there are original songs used for this game, but also quite a number of music not directly made for this project, which gives the game quite a number of musical themes, from upbeat poppy hangout music, sort of future funk bar hangouts, hard-hitting emotional guitar jams, more intense sort of dystopian techno. I know, I'm just making up genres. Calming ambience for the down moments. And I suppose the majority of what you'll be listening to, some good crunchy chiptune. I'm not kidding when I say this, but mix the visuals and sounds, and this is low-key kind of a Genesis game. It would not be a lie to say that this game has the blood of Sonic the Hedgehog in it. Like, the more chiptuney music sort of has that dirty Genesis twang to it that makes those songs go hard. And over the course of the game, I had some rising suspicions. Like, I wasn't gonna say anything at the mushroom zone with the familiar sounding music, the sand area with the flipping of the hourglasses, the carnival area where you run up a wall on speed inclines and bounce on balloons. Okay, I mean, come on. But it was when I reached this water dungeon with another suspiciously familiar sounding track, at least with the instruments used, and saw this line of dialogue about hydrosity. Yes, hydrosity, not Hydro City or wherever the y'all are on. That was like, you know, I think Bass likes Sonic. I mean, there's straight up an enemy named Palm Tree Panic, and a character named Genesis! But hey, I ain't hating. I think Sonic is cool as hell. I like this game's unique look. Whether or not y'all agree with that, well, of course that's up to your own opinion. But in a sea of indie games that often choose to invoke a certain visual style, replicating something of a previous game or generation, or just to pay homage to the games it's inspired by, it's nice to play something that just wants to be itself and do its own thing. Or at least something I've not encountered before. Hopefully my footage that has a knack for desaturating and blurring the image can still do this game justice. This game also has voice acting, not very often, and not for many characters. Just every once in a while a line of dialogue will be voiced. And yeah, I think it's some pretty good stuff. Like, Zaz's voice is so perfect, and always think of his "it's just business" line.
It's just business.
And Show's voice?
It's showtime!
Bruh, talk about a perfect match. Elevates that character for sure. Big fan of Eliza's voice as well.
I am Eliza Belgard, the left hand of Zeta, head of logistics, and press secretary.
And the meatbags line by Detritus 12 always makes me laugh.
Prepare to die, meatbags!
However, I'm going to have to say the most impactful voice acting belongs to what is easily the best NPC in this game. This gamer right here, you talk to them and...
I'm so big.
And that's all they say.
I'm so big.
I don't even know why they say that.
I'm so big.
Like, why are they so big, yo?
I'm so big.
And every time I see them, I'm just obligated to...
I'm so big.
I love this character.
I'm so big.
One more time.
I'm so big.
Oh my god.
I'm so big.
Okay.
I'm so big.
I don't even know why this makes me laugh. Like, I legit don't.
I'm so big.
Okay, final time.
I'm so big.
Anyways.
I'm so big.
Yeah, y'all should have saw that one coming. Anyways.
I'm so big.
Did y'all see that one coming, though?
I'm so big.
God, they're so big.
I'm so big.
Oh, golly. It's time I talk about the gameplay. This is going to take a while. DYZTOPIA is a game that throws so many ideas at the wall with all these systems and mechanics. It is rich. Before anything, I decided to do 2 playthroughs of this game for 3 reasons. 1, my first playthrough of this game was back in April, and it was before a pretty major update that was going to change several aspects of the game, from new characters, new story stuff, and better polish, and I didn't want my video to be outdated before it even came out. 2, I wanted to try hard mode, since it does have some pretty big gameplay changes that I'll get into later. Finally, I'm gonna be honest, I like this game so much I'd replay it 100 times. But one thing that is neat is that the difficulty chosen changes the color of the text window border, so y'all can tell which playthrough is which by watching, alongside if you see Akira running, because that ability wasn't available during my first playthrough. With all that cleared, let's start with the overworld gameplay. This game is a 2D RPG, which is definitely not anything you see ever, besides that one game of course that we're all thinking of. Movement is as expected, left and right for normal travel, utilizing ladders with up and down to move that way, alongside the confirm key to interact with the likes of levers, locked doors we need to find keys for, bounce pads, and more. The way the player traverses these areas are very creative and well thought out, with how the puzzles of using elevators and switches, and the attention put on the individual floors that the players can move between, makes these screens feel like puzzle boxes. While the idea of 2D dungeons may seem limiting, these honestly have more depth to them, and carry a lot of spirit to that of an RPG dungeon that we're used to in the more overhead games. There's still plenty of unique dungeon traversal and mechanics, from timer-based hourglasses, pipe traveling and swimming through water, to fast-paced areas where I need to press buttons in rapid succession as I'm forced to move on a long auto path. And let me tell ya, these become a lot easier when I learned that you can just hold the direction down instead of trying to press it like it's a QTE or a rhythm game. I never thought I'd say this, but even the dungeons are like Sonic levels. Like, that's what they reminded me of. Commonly having multiple routes to take to an exit, or at least feeling that way. These dungeons can only be a few screens long but feel like much larger places. I can definitely say I missed out on a ton of items and secrets just due to choosing a specific path and running through it to the end. Some areas really let you go wherever. This game has a pretty consistent structure of spending some time in a dungeon, followed up with being in a town, shopping to get various items, talking it up with my boy Asterisk, and just hanging out with friends of our choice. This kinda often leads to long stretches of no combat at points, which never bothered me because I like these characters as much as I like the combat system. This gameplay formula is consistent to the very end, as this is a very linear RPG, one that railroads the player from one area to the next. If you're at one place, chances are you're never going to return after the next story arc. Revisiting areas or any sort of freedom to explore the world at your own pace is non-existent. I didn't like this at first, but didn't mind it as much on my second playthrough. I guess I just came to understand that that's what DYZTOPIA wanted to do, and perhaps on my first playthrough, my mind was a tad warped from playing other RPGs with world maps and the like. I think its linear structure ends up having more of a problem with the world to me and how I view it, but I'll get to that later. It works fine, just not something I particularly prefer or am used to. However, it's time we enter combat, and I'm about to knock you the hell out. Affectionate. Combat encounters are on screen, and seeing how we're in a 2D environment are typically unavoidable, but it isn't uncommon for enemies to be moving in routes, giving the player an opportunity to dodge them with good timing, which is nice, considering that it's not possible to run from encounters in this game. Shit's about to get complicated, so get ready. Touching an enemy leads us into battle with our 4 front party members. The player can switch members around and menu out of battle. We have the 4 commands you'd expect: normal attack, magic for skills, items for, well, items, and guard for guard. Looking up top, we can see our HP, MP, barrier, and hype. Barrier can be granted by some items and skills, and is basically like overhealth, typically needing to be depleted before losing actual HP, but there are enemy skills and status effects that ignore barrier. Everyone starts with a max of 4 MP, but of course equipment can change this. This is used for skills of varying costs, and is regenerated by 1 every turn. However, a character also regains 1 MP by guarding, giving a net total of 2. Furthermore, a normal attack also rewards MP, which if the character's agility stat is high enough, they will attack another time, giving 2 MP. Hype can go up by 3 notches and is raised in 3 different ways. By targeting an enemy's weakness, which is thusly labeled under them when discovered by being attacked by that element, or by using an item to reveal their weaknesses, landing a critical hit, or defeating an opponent. Opponents have their own hype that functions the same way, and how we raise hype is the same way we make our opponents lose hype. This goes the other way around, so if an enemy crits me or exploits a weakness with an attack, they gain hype, I lose hype. What does hype do? Well, it gets you hype enough to hit that like and subscribe button, my gamer! I'm sorry, I'll never do that again. Hype increases MP regeneration, is required to be used by some skills, alters the effects of other skills, and increases stats in general. Confusing? Don't worry, I barely understood it on my 2 playthroughs. I just see bar go up and say okay. That's kinda how this game is. Things just happen, and I just don't think about it too hard. Like, why does Genesis sometimes throw 2 cards instead of 1? I don't know, bruh. Maybe she just felt like it. I know to y'all this probably doesn't seem complicated so far, but, yeah. We're going off the deep end now. You know you're playing a real-ass RPG when every skill has like a paragraph of text, and every stat is actually an attack stat with a secondary effect. I will say, I absolutely love that the game shows formulas in its skills. Can like every RPG do this? Super appreciable because as I just mentioned, every stat is an attack stat. Some skills use luck as damage, others use agility. The damage I'm doing here as Akira is based off my resistance stat, which is this game's magic defense / heal stat. It can be a little inconsistent. Some spells like holy water or whatever didn't tell me what the formula was, and sometimes the text that says whether or not an attack is physical or magical can be colored incorrectly, which is actually important because physical attacks can use your magic stat and magical attacks can use your physical attack stat. It's so fucking awesome, bruh. But it is spot on most of the time in conveying what an ability does. A single skill in this game is far more interesting than every skill in other RPGs. Dare I say most RPGs. As y'all can see, Skills have various attributes, and this is what really gives them personality and flavor. Things like being able to refund MP if an enemy is defeated by a move, ignoring barrier, having extra effects activated by certain conditions, like a follow-up attack if the opponent has a certain status affliction, or if I have hype. Even the more interactive ones such as push, which is one of my favorites. Push makes it so if I hold down the confirm button during an attack, it will have an extra effect at the cost of something else, such as MP. The go-to one of course is Akira's Aqua Bolas, an attack that normally you would have to wait a turn before impacting the target, but can be activated immediately through push and the cost of an extra MP. One of my favorites has to be Chase's multi-kicks. Chase is a super high HP character, with her gimmick being that a lot of her attacks are based around her HP. So yes, technically even HP is an attack stat. And her multi-kicks allow me to repeat the attack per every 150 HP I have as long as I'm holding down the push command. And there's just nothing more satisfying than holding down that button and watching the attack land over and over. Just seeing the enemy's health wheel deplete with those crunchy sound effects. It's busted, but everything in this game is. Though it also gives +3 cooldown for every time I push it. Basically, all skills have a cooldown to them, and some of these can be pretty long, the player needing to wait a number of turns for them to be returned and usable again. These cooldowns also persist after battle. Very rare is a time that a character has all their moves ready to use. Some people might find this anti-fun, but I think the opposite. It's necessary, and allows all these skills to have farther distinction to one another. Let me tell you all about one of my favorite skills in this game, a perfect example of how much all these additions and effects have on making skills cool. Crow. I fucking love him, but I'll get to that later. He has a number of cool skills involving poisoning targets and being able to deal more damage to poison targets, and is basically the anti-barrier character. Much like how we have barrier, enemies also have it, that being that red wheel you see when the enemy takes damage. Crow has a skill known as Eagle Eye, and it's like, god damn, am I wet or what? It's a powerful skill with a long cooldown of 6 turns. However, it has the added effects of ignoring enemy barriers, and if I defeat an enemy with it, it has no cooldown and refunds me my MP. This clearly places it as a skill used to finish off enemies with, but it's still a risk as I need to consider the enemy's current HP and whether or not it will deal enough damage. Furthermore, I need to consider my other skills. Is this enemy below half HP? Well, I have Shark Bite, which attacks twice under that condition. Maybe that's the better play. But I might also have Envenom up, which deals extreme damage to enemies that are poisoned. Is the enemy poisoned? What other moves do I have that currently aren't on cooldown? That's what makes this combat system so dynamic. There are so many variables heading into every fight that it makes every fight feel fresh. Sometimes my broke-ass skills are useless because an enemy resists or absorbs their element. Maybe I didn't come into a fight with enough MP, so now I need to reconsider what to do. Also, keep in mind that while leveling up, the player must choose between skills a character can learn, and what the player doesn't choose, they will never get the chance to learn again. Meaning every playthrough might end up differently, and everyone playing will have vastly different skill sets for their characters than one another. And all this isn't even to consider enemy mechanics, especially some of the bosses. I can't think of any other RPG with a combat system this good. I'm not kidding, it blows everything else out of the water. It's very clear to me that Base has a creative ass mind and a very good understanding of the genre to create something so free. And buddy, I'm not even close to finished. Outside of battle, players can spend fate points, FP, to upgrade characters' skills and unlock new ones. For Akira in particular, they can upgrade their stats. The stats are pretty similar to what you're used to, just also being used in attack formulas. A special shout out to luck, however, being a stat that several skills utilize in the fashion that if your luck is higher than the opponent's, you'll be able to inflict them with a status effect. This makes the luck stat sort of a defensive offensive status stat. Very useful for characters like Genesis, who has the game plan of using flash skills, which don't cost a turn, in order to inflict status effects, finishing the job with Spark Plug, a move that hits for every status effect an enemy has on them. And it's just like, nothing is more satisfying than this. Flash skills are so cool because they create actual character combos. Like, take this Crow combo right here. Crombo, if you will. Eagle Eye can't break the damage cap of 1000. Some moves can, it's also an effect. Thusly, I use Snipe, a flash skill I upgraded to have no cooldown, twice to soften the enemy up, before finishing the job with an Eagle Eye. Like, is that not the coolest shit ever? It took me over 10 hours to come up with that, and trust me, I was using Crow for the whole game. You can legit make character montages for some of the sick stuff you can pull off with these characters. Like, F it. Play my Crow kill montage. I love this game. Alongside this is equipment, and if you think the game slouches here, if you think the game is going to get easy to understand here, if you think this is going to be the basic boring ass equipment systems you're used to seeing, then buddy, you don't know shit. Players can equip a weapon, armor, 2 accessories, and 3 shards. All of these have an extra effect. For example, Crow having a weapon that allows that snipe skill to hit twice. Man, I sure like talking about this guy. And a lot of the armor scales pretty well into the late game. Like, one of the first armors you get straight up increases its stats according to the character's current level. Yes, even the armor has formulas. And it feels like they all have their uses. I was still using a lot of early game armor into the late game. It's not that late stuff gets outright better, it just gives more opportunities. In order for Genesis's combo to work, I need MP, so armor and accessories that affect that is ideal. I mentioned that Chase has skills dependent on her HP, so armor that helps with that is key. But it's not just that, equipment has effects with other equipment. With Akira, I was using battery gear, which increases my resistance and defense in tandem with how much MP I have. So it's a good idea that I also wear some armor that increases my max MP. Or, how about this piece of equipment I had on Crow? Big Muscle. An accessory giving a pretty great HP boost, and also grants a barrier equal to Crow's attack stat. So I thusly paired it up with the Ruby Ring, which gets 2 attack, plus Crow's HP as a percentage. These 2 items work so well. Not only that, he was also wearing a dress, because that's gamer fucking excellent. And the dress gave him an additional 200 HP. So needless to say, I was cooking. I know some people are watching this in bewilderment, but this is what I love about RPGs. There's just such a variety of builds. And gamer, please, please, you know I'm not even close to done yet. Oh my god. What's with these shards, yo? Well, I hope you're ready to roll, my gamies. Because it's time to talk about gacha. Yeah, this game's got gacha, it's got it all. Gacha is a vendor and the #1 way to get shards. And it is as it seems, we gotta roll for them. Shards give skills to be used in battle, and a character can equip up to 3. Yes, there's even a star rarity system to these. The fact that these are random farther encourages every playthrough to be different. On my first playthrough, I had some useful skills on Akira that I just didn't on the next one. It really changed things. On the other hand, on my second playthrough, I rolled the Shard Hyper Heal, which is extremely useful and powerful healing skill that when used in the right situation can give me a massive barrier to all my allies. And it's gonna be real weird when I play through this game again and realize that Akira doesn't have it base kit. Some are given throughout fights as monster/boss drops, so in my eyes, Crow will always be rocking that shark bite. There's a lot of consideration for these skills, what they do and their formulas, and who they fit with best. Some even give extra stats when equipped, and can range from spells to buffs to status effects. Not even to mention that every character has a preferred element they do more damage with, alongside an adverse element that they're weaker with. And even if a shard doesn't seem useful, at the end of the day, it gives your character an extra skill, and you never know when you're going to be on cooldown with everything else, and need a cheap move with a low MP cost to finish the job. My only gripe is the shard's description. When equipping it, it just says, this shard will teach the skill Smacko. Like, yeah, I already know that bruh, the game told me how this works. I wish instead the description for shards would just be a copy-paste of the skills description, because it is quite annoying that the only way I can check a skill shard is by first equipping it, and then going to a character's page I equipped it to just to see if it's worth my time, and if it's not, well, then I need to go back to the character and remember what shard I had on previously, and trust me, I don't remember shit. I feel the same way with the skills that characters can learn after a fight, or, well, after leveling. Don't give me a vague description, or I'll accidentally get an intelligence magical fire attack on Chase. Just copy paste the skill description here. I understand your hieroglyphics, base. Another thing I don't like is that gacha ain't gacha enough, my gamer. He's lacking the gacha. What I'm saying is that I wish gacha had 10 rolls and 50 rolls, rather than needing to constantly talk with him over and over, ready to roll, ready to roll, ready to roll. Like, yes man, I am. It makes rolling the gacha pretty unfun and tedious by the end game when I have so much money to spend that I often don't even bother just to get a move on. Hey Spacey, what are you buying? Those aren't shards. Weapon mods? Oh, gamer. You fell for my trap. And now you're gonna pay. This game has a weapon modification system. One which I was both curious and worried about. Mostly because I'm using a very similar system. I mean, it's Yanfly's item upgrade slots. The base has really come up with quite a number of unique effects that aren't present in that plugin's description. How this works is that weapons have a limited amount of slots in which mods can be put in, typically balanced in a way that more powerful weapons with secondary effects have smaller mod limits. Opposite true as well. Good example being Akira's starting shuriken, allowing for 10 slots to make up for basically giving nothing to the player, and having it be a weapon that really scales well into endgame. If you ever wanted to make an RPG where your character's starting weapon is the best one, but also wanted the player to use different weapons throughout the course of the game, then this is probably the way to do it. Mods range from the most basic being stat ups, to ones with more unique effects, like changing the damage of a normal attack to use the intelligence stat over the attack stat, lowering cooldowns on all skills, giving buffs while afflicted with certain status conditions, adding debuffs to the weapon's attack, and more. The stat ups are pretty massive as well, like a large stat up gives 50, and a medium gives 30, so it's very easy to make equipment with enough slots specifying a certain stat to make it better than any other equipment, just at the cost of potentially neat secondary effects that some of these weapons give. This is where the builds really come in. Like with Akira's 10 slots on their starting shuriken, I could go to town on resistance stat ups and make them the perfect healing tank, or go all in on Crow's attack stat, Genesis's luck, Runi's intelligence. I found myself really enjoying this system, so much so that when I went to gacha, I just preferred to spend my money on weapon mods over shards. Luckily, weapon mods are introduced a tad later to still give me time to shard up. To those worried about wasting their mods, gonna be real, most characters only have like 2 to 5 weapons, and mods are so cheap that you'll have a lot of leftover ones. It's okay to place them on a weapon that you're ultimately not going to use. Although, admittedly, I have trouble with that myself. I think the only thing I question about this system is some of the stat ups not making sense. Some upgrades cost multiple slots to put on a weapon. For example, something like an attack medium increases the stat by 30 at the cost of 1 slot, but an attack large increases the stat by 50 at the cost of 2 slots. Like, isn't medium just better? 60 for 2 slots or 50 for 2 slots? But it's not even for all stats, as a large luck increases the stat by 50 at the cost of 3 slots. Is luck really that strong? W system overall. I do like that it's tied to the gacha, but damn do I wish some characters like Genesis had more weapons that would allow a higher amount of slots. I have one last weird thing I want to talk about when it comes to weapons, but we're gonna need to talk to my boy Asterisk. I won't lie, some of y'all might be wondering how I found out about DYZTOPIA, and it's legit just because I saw base like a post I made, saw their icon, which was Asterisk, and thought to myself, wow, that's a cute character, proceeding to then check their profile and learn of the game. Yeah, I know, I really am that easy. I guess there's something funny that the merchant character ended up selling me on the game. Guess he's damn good at his job. Nice stuff, cutie. But yeah, yeet. Asterisk is one of quite a few merchants that we can hang and talk with, but more importantly, buy stuff from. What should be noted is that he has 2 selections to buy stuff from, normal and seasonal. Listen, DYZTOPIA has a lot of weird ass ideas, and I think this is one of the oddest ones. The seasonal section contains equipment and items that gain big bonuses during certain months of the year, but it's like only between October and January. Like, hey, I love autumn too, but this is just an odd idea. So I guess if y'all are going to play this game, now would be the best time if you want the benefits from these exclusive items. Maybe someday I'll play through this game around this time and be able to enjoy them. I mean, sure, I can probably just change the date on my computer, but that's too much of a hassle. Very odd system, but kind of funny too. Just odd to think that these characters already have so few weapons, and some of them are hidden behind seasons. During the course of the game, certain characters will become synced with different stones, some starting out synced off the bat, but during battle, at the cost of 2 hype, the player can transform into their synced form. Yes, this game even has transformations. Doing so will buff up some stats, alongside offering new skills. Only one character can be transformed at a time. Who gets what stones throughout the story is up to player choices, so while some characters may never get a sync, others may get an opportunity if the user the stone would have originally synced with died during the story. One last system I'm yet to touch up on are the items. There's a large variety of usable items in this game, from healing, status curing, to even attack items, but I never found much reason to use them. If you play healer Akira like I did, then you can completely remove the purpose of items from the game. But there's like actually some depth to it, in the way that different foods have like elements to them, such as sweet, spicy, vegetable, and characters will be healed more by their preferred food, which is also an idea that I've had as well. A question at the beginning of the game gives the player a choice of choosing Akira's preferred food type. Maybe someday I'll play through this game with a non-healer Akira, so I'll be able to properly interact with this system, instead of just having like 6 full heal skills that I can spam. I also really appreciate the red enemies that players can encounter. These are like mini bosses that upon defeating give you items that you can use to craft a new weapon. It's always exciting seeing one of these guys. So without going into individual characters just yet, as even them have unique passive abilities, because of course they do, I can understand if y'all are rather intimidated by this game and its vast variety of mechanics. There's so much to this game that trying to understand everything isn't entirely necessary, because there's a lot to keep track of. I think the first 30 minutes of this game are just complete total hell, trying to understand anything that's happening. It's just a game you gotta sit down and learn, and once you do, things aren't as painful. I can easily play through this game now, because let me tell you, I legit got a headache from the first 30 minutes or so trying to understand this stuff. But that's how RPGs are. It's always daunting getting into a new game, and to be fair, I think this game does a great job explaining a lot of these mechanics, and just giving a lot of aid to the player. most notably being the forecast system, telling you your accuracy, how much damage you'll do, and crit chance before you even attack an enemy, so you can know ahead of time how useful an attack will be, or if your skill will make them absorb it. And that can also be used to try and guess an opponent's weakness. This doesn't show up on attacks that target all enemies, except on certain attacks where it does. Inconsistency, but whatever. It mostly shows up and is a helpful tool for the player, very much so. Another nice thing are the save spots. Yeah, the save spots are ducks. You can quack with them and shit, but they always offer a glossary to read up on if you're confused on anything. One last thing I'll mention is to follow up on what I previously talked on, the difficulty in this game, as in the 3 difficulty selections. The major gameplay change between them, which you may have noticed by now if you've been paying attention, is that hard mode only allows a party of 3 characters to enter battles. This is a tough one, because while I like being able to use 4 fun characters, I can't help but feel that this game is paced so much better with 3. I think the game is better with 3 party members. This is notes from old me, so I don't know if I still agree with it, but first playthrough me commented how the fights felt rather sluggish with 4 party members, and how often I wouldn't even be able to use them all before it would end. Current me has no knowledge or experience with the 4 party member battles now, but I can say 3 would allow me to have more fun with those 3 characters, as with less characters, more turns will pass, which will allow me to use my cooldown moves more, instead of moves being on cooldown for several fights. I know the normal difficulty states that this was how Dystopia was meant to be played, but I can't help but feel that Bass must have tested 3-person parties and felt similar to how I did, deciding to add it as a separate mode. I guess my solution, and what I wish this game was a kind of game where, despite being a 3-person party, have some system to encourage switching around more. I mean, everyone shares XP, but having to learn a character and fully equip them up with a build takes time. If the game did something like making it impossible to revive characters outside of saves and towns, then that would encourage me to at least have a squad of 6. Let me pull characters from the backup bench. While on playthroughs I still switched party members around, it never felt necessary for me to do so, and the moments where they force certain party members on the player is kinda rare, which is probably a good thing, but for actual difficulty, this game is mostly easy on any difficulty. This game sorta just spams heals and saves. Like, hard mode has these red ducks that you can only save once at, which I just don't see the point. Especially when there's also ducks that are normal saves, and this game has saves back to back pretty often. I feel like as a linear game, this idea just doesn't work, when most of the time I'm not heading back to save at a previous spot, because this game is all about going forward. I get what they're trying to imitate, but all these red ducks do is preventing the player from using the full heals that you get, in which case, just make hard mode remove these healies that can be used from save spots. It would give a bigger use to Edgar being able to use them. But hey, to be fair, hard mode does have its moments. It's very normal that you get outsped by enemies, and sometimes fights just start with you getting ultra comboed to death without being able to do anything. Which is dope, I actually like that. Like, whenever that happens, I'm like, oh hell yeah, this is gonna be a good fight. And the final fight is 100% tough. Considering I was at max level with the best equipment I had, good ass challenge. I guess I still need to understand that my views on hard mode may be a little skewed, because I was using a far too overpowered character to skip nearly every encounter. I think I've settled on gameplay for now, so I'd like to speak towards the characters, story, and writing of this game. And if y'all thought I waffled on too long about the gameplay, just you wait. I actually like the writing, surprisingly so. Y'all have probably seen the dialogue by now. I guess it's hard to describe, but it's very tech modern. Kind of like people talking like text messages at points. It's a strange game in that regard, and the part that I can see detracting a lot of people, you got characters dropping emoticons, saying bruh, lol, lamau, referencing JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and the entirety of Bone Town, which, honestly, might defeat half of the people who try to play this game. And I feel like this is the kind of dialogue that I would hate, but I really don't at all. Maybe I just hate normal people, but I'm so f***ing sick of playing games with these normal ass characters talking to each other like it's 20 years ago. Maybe this is sad, but the way a lot of these characters talk is pretty realistic to me. Like, wow, these characters are pretty relatable. I low-key know people like this. It's so refreshing. There are still more serious characters that talk more normally, but a good amount of characters don't, in a way that isn't annoying and lets them be interesting. Like my boy Fredek calling your ass a noob lord. I don't hate it, because unlike other games that try to be quirky and goofy, this game never feels like it's trying hard. It feels more genuine. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Base talks like one of these characters. And the game is genuinely pretty funny. There's quite a few lines of dialogue that got me. Moments including when Akira gets cancelled, some thirsty person asking Genesis to take her shoes off for money, Fredek trying to Ligma Runi, which honestly, Fredek is just such a W character. There's no way people hate this guy. I don't know, shit's just funny to me. Characters that are serious, and more goofy characters like Kiyota are of course going to talk about her eroge, and call Crow a hobo while threatening to kick anyone's ass. It helps make the group feel distinct. A bunch of different people from very different places in the world. It doesn't feel like the typical RPG where it's like, oh, here's this character trope, here's this character trope. These are just people. Like, these characters stand out so much more compared to how many RPGs I can name with the most basic and obvious characters I've seen. And it can be pretty real at times, like legit feeling anxiety with characters such as Barbados around, who's just gonna blow up on anyone, alongside some painful to watch scenes. Sometimes it's not always the best written in my opinion. Without pausing, dialogue and bigger, more impactful lines can just skip by. Really, it's just like reading text messages, but that's a me nitpick. I know this is just because I'm an antisocial loser, but some of these conversations just don't seem real to me. Which I know is kind of vague, but I do get that that's more of a me kind of thing. I never had people like this in my life. And sometimes things just don't make sense to me. Like Akira not recognizing Kekon, when it's like, we've literally talked to her. But maybe Akira just forgot about her, but I mean with an appearance like that seems tough. Still, I love these characters, but sadly, not everyone gets to make it to the end of DYZTOPIA. DYZTOPIA is a game of choices. Often you won't realize that you're making choices when it happens, and this mostly centers around the link system. At certain points when resting at a town or campsite, Akira can spend a limited amount of activity points to hang out with a party member, as Kiyota points out, kinda like a visual novel. And it's these link conversations where the heart of DYZTOPIA truly shines. So many of them reveal important things about these characters, a lot you would otherwise never know unless if you watch these scenes. It will take multiple replaythroughs to understand everything about this game. Some of my favorite moments and scenes are hidden behind these conversations. I learned so much more on my second playthrough by syncing up with new people. While still syncing up with Crow, of course. Such as Akira being a stoner back in high school, why Fredek and Genesis hate Clyde so much. This is something that can only be learned in this conversation, alongside many other big revelations. I never interacted with Kiyota on my first playthrough. I randomly check in on her during my second playthrough, and it's like, holy shit! But that's the thing. The player is given so few points to interact with these characters that it's always a hard decision. And this is besides the fact that linking with characters increases their link level, giving new passive bonuses and skills, which I swear some characters can't even be maximally linked. I know you can argue just to save before these choices to view the scenes for everyone, and not to spoil too much, but who you choose to hang out with does have a big effect on certain points of the plot. And it seems like some of these conversations even get brought up into later Link conversations. Like, I was really surprised when Genesis brought up what we learned in our previous conversation with Kiyota, and wondered if she would have said that if I didn't hang out with Kiyota earlier. I've had so many nights where I'm not even kidding. I lay down on my couch I call bed, just thinking about the first choice the player has to make, only having one activity point, and choosing between Barbados, Rosie, Fredek, and Genesis. Like, I legit just sat there thinking about that choice, the effects of it, what happens to these characters, and just how bizarre and genius of a first choice it is. And with what I may or may not know now, I honestly think about it even more. Before sleeping, I would think so much about these characters. I would think what they would do next, what would happen in the story. I've legit had a dream about one of these characters, which I'll get into in a bit. I just wish I could love the world this game takes place in as much as I love these characters. Due to the linearity of the world, it doesn't really feel big to me. And not being able to revisit areas, simply teleporting from place to place, makes it hard for me to remember certain parts of the world. I get that a lot of these places are small to give the idea of what its full size would be, a compact showcase of what the area represents. That's pretty normal in RPGs, when a town is to be represented as a few buildings, as not to necessitate the need to make a massive map. It's just hard to believe characters saying that they've lived in Zeta City for so long, trying to hide from Zeta Corps for years, when gameplay-wise, this big city is about the same size as Pon Pon Village, and sometimes I forget that this place is supposed to be a lot bigger. I felt this less on my second playthrough as I came to accept the game's linearity, but even with the world map, it's just hard to feel the connectiveness and size of the world. When we teleport from Snow City to Desert to Fireland, I know the world map is supposed to help with that, but I just can't help but to disconnect from a lot of these places, their problems, their people, when I'm only there for such a short time, and I'm never able to revisit it. It feels less like a world and more like teleporting to different levels, much like the save names of areas on the file select screen. I think Vulcanite was the best at establishing itself in its history, the lower class miners, how Morgalia came into power. I thought that was cool. I like the details explaining things about the world, such as the demon wards, or how we aren't killing monsters but taming them, turning them into these Puyo ass blobs, I suppose. I'm interested in the King of Tundras, a character that only ever gets mentioned by name, but does end up having some story relevance, like, who are they? Maybe that's a Dystopia 2 thing. But not everything gets conveyed as well as I wish. I had this problem with the whole resistance plot. It never really felt like we were winning people to our side. Even in scenes that try to convey that, I just wish there was a moment where a ton of NPCs would gather around in our support. Because it always just felt like a group of 9 or so people doing their own thing. You can say we have support, show some tweets on screen, but I never felt affected enough by what the game tried to show in order to represent that. It's a small gripe in the grand scheme of things, and maybe that one doesn't even make sense. But with characters like these, I can say I don't mind too much if the story didn't focus on the world as much as I wished it would. Speaking of which, I think it's time I talk about this ragtag gang. What I learned about them through my 2 playthroughs, their gameplay, and for some of them, if they even made it to the end of the game. Thusly, this is where the spoilers are going to be. If I haven't sold you on this game yet, then damn, I suck, because this game rocks. Hell, you play the game now and there's a Halloween update going on where characters have new costumes. Y'all have probably noticed it by now. So that's pretty cool. It lasts until November, so now really is the time to play because these costumes are kind of busted, yo. And make some of the characters the funnest they'll ever be. I'm mostly going to talk about the playable characters, but I'll give a shout out to the more notable villains. So let's begin, of course, with the main character, Akira Sakamoto. I like Akira. They have a very positive and helpful attitude, and a knack for getting people to spill their hearts out to them, telling things that they would never tell to anyone else otherwise. Their eventual Zodiac partner, Libra, believes Akira to have some sort of healing power when it comes to helping people, kinda adding an explanation to why everyone just tells their entire life story to this person they barely know. They're a great main character, friendly to all, but willing to stand up for themselves and make their own decisions. Their big character arc is the exhaustion they felt of constantly being ordered around by others and told how to live, choosing to stop being passive and do what they want. Which explains the beginning text line of asking if the player really wants to bring back humanity. What do you want to do, you know? And I don't know what, but something about Akira being a stoner back in high school adds so much to this character. They can party, hang out, and chill out. I like the relationship with Barbados and Runi, how, depending on player choices, they can try and give people second chances, but also know when people go too far and when it's time to drop people from your life and move on. Sometimes literally dropping them. They f***ing killed his ass, bruh. While they can be oblivious to others' true intentions and have some questionable plans, they kinda get it, you know? And I don't mean like that. I mean in the way that they've been through a lot, and I like the way they understand the world. They go through a lot of garbage in this story, but always manages to stay positive. Despite having to do awful things, they can still have friendly conversations with others, but will never allow themselves to get pushed around by others, and demands that same kind of respect that they give. Dope ass character. Gameplay wise, well, in my eyes, Akira is the healer. The way they are, the player can do anything with them. The formula of their skill is factoring in their highest stats, so the idea is that you can go wherever you want with Akira and build a character. But if we're gonna be real, there's like no other healers in this game. Maybe Crow? And I suppose anyone can be a healer thanks to shards, but I don't know, I can't think of playing Akira any other way. And like most healers, they enable me to have fun with other characters. It's like a necessary evil to have a healer, so your fun characters get to play the game. It's just that when it comes to raising other stats, it's like, oh, you want to try raising their intelligence? Well, why not just use Runi? Want an agility build? Well, I mean, Edgar's right there. Defense? Oh, you mean Detritus? Attack? Like Crow? The problem is that there's no character that really specializes in healing and the resistance stat. Even in story, Akira is referred to as a healer. It's canon. I wanted to try something different for my second playthrough, but it was hard mode, and I believe that the most optimal Akira is resistance, so I ended up doing the same thing again. Little did I know, my hard mode playthrough would be easier than my normal playthrough thanks to a certain character that breaks this game's difficulty in half, but we'll get to him later. Pro gamer tip if y'all play this game, this person right here has the hookup. They react to Akira's current highest stat and gives them a shard with a skill that benefits from that stat. So even if Akira was mostly a healer, I had moves like Nari, Naridine, and Diamond to deal damage. Just not a ton. And shit like Aqua Rin, like, caps at 500 damage. That John's useless. So yeah, gameplay wise for me, they're an enabler character. Their idea is that they can be built in many different ways, but without a sure healer, I can't help but believe that going healer is the best way to play them. Would love to hear how y'all played as Akira, what stat you used, and what the experience was like. Tell me below in the comments for sure, I'm curious. I think they can be pretty strong with certain stat builds. Barbados. Do I have to talk about this guy? He's not even technically a party member, whatever. Like, when I saw I couldn't take off this dude's armor, I was basically just waiting for this guy to die. That's just an RPG thing. Barbados is the antithesis to Akira. Brother to the old top-ranked Zodiac hunter Kale, who died before the start of this game, he seeks nothing more than revenge, and sucking off Zeta as much as possible to reach the #1 spot, jealous that Akira has now taken that spot since Kale's departure. He's a pissed off dude that blows up on everyone and is sort of just a hateable loser. Like, the only reason Akira tried to be friends with this guy is because Kale basically begged them to try. He's a piece of garbage, and seeing him try to suck up to Detritus and care nothing more than his shitty rank is just so pathetic. And of course, eventually going out to kill everyone in Pon Pon, taking the opportunity to avenge Kale and even kill Akira. Akira ultimately defeating and killing him. Garbage can. I do feel kind of bad for him though. Barbados deserved so much worse for what he did. But maybe in some way, he deserved so much better to prevent what happened. And I wish we could have helped him before he did what he did. But maybe some people just can't be saved. He was just a lonely guy that got validation from the fake appreciation he received from Zeta. In his eyes, being the top ranked hunter is the only thing that gave him purpose in life. And when he died, Zeta sure as hell didn't give a shit. I just wonder how differently the plot would have gone if Runi told him that his brother was still alive. It's kind of weird that we never really get to see the two interact with one another either, and this scene doesn't count. I suppose we'll go through the other character we get in the prologue, Detritus. Detritus is cool as hell. He's President Zaz's son, and is the 11th Detritus build, a droid with some human parts. He's got a sick-ass motorcycle too, so you know he's a cooler. Realizes Zaz is trash and resists against him, which results in his destruction. But gamer Eliza comes through with the clutch, and the two head out to join Akira's resistance, with Detritus sort of being the leader of the resistance. He's one of the more serious characters, having that whole question of if he has emotions and whatnot. I mean, it is kind of effed up that he set up a whole training simulation for Akira and put Barbados in it, like, hey bruh, too soon. And being able to go on the dating show with them is a pretty good highlight. I think he definitely ranks high as one of my favorite characters. My dude just looks cool as hell too, and I vibe with his personality. Gameplay wise, on my first playthrough, I can say he was probably the strongest character in the game. Like, dude was just the best character in my eyes. His skills scale off his defense, and Blood just annihilates everyone in his path while being a total tank. His skills that hit all do absurd damage, and his single target skills aren't anything to scoff at either. He's real easy to play, and thanks to the fact that his links are tied to completing the battle lab, there's nothing stopping the player from max linking with him every playthrough, as it doesn't cost any activity points. Just an hour or two of your life. That's the Detritus tax. I'd say he's the strongest character, but unfortunately, he's been dethroned due to the update which added a character far more overpowered than him. But we'll get to ya, mate. I fucking love Crow, bruh. Oh my god. He's this homeless dude you find in the subway who forces your ass to go to the sewers and fight some demons with him. Like, sure bruh, anything for you. He hates Zeta and any Zeta bootlickers, and he's just so wholesome. Wanting nothing more than to chill out and drink some warm cocoa. Like, he's perfect, bruh. And I mean, just look at him. Like, damn. I'm looking respectfully. I mean, I have to. He does have a family, and I gotta respect that. Damn, why do all the cute ones have to be taken? Bullshit. Am I being weird? This game's weird, bruh. Yeah, I kinda simp for this dude. Like, no kidding, I dreamt about this guy. Twice! I had a dream where I hugged Crow, and I won't lie, I've never felt so happy in my life. That shit felt magical. You don't see me having dreams about hugging any of these other characters. Though funnily enough, while editing this video, I did have a dream about Detritus. We didn't hug or anything, but I wouldn't have been opposed. We like won a war together. It was hard too. So like, good stuff, dude. Thanks. It doesn't matter. I still hugged Crow, and goddamn it, I'd do it a million more times. So yeah, he's the best character in this game. Like, if any of you motherfuckers got this dude killed on your playthrough, then just leave, bruh. I can't socialize with you. If anything, he's one of the characters that deserve to live the most. As Crow is just an alias, his true name is Dr. Haifumi, a scientist working for Zeta Corps who just wants to help people, and was one of the first to see the unethical entailings of Zaz's plans to bring back humanity and relocate all other species, which led to him getting fired and hiding from Zeta Corps. Dude is just a W-ass character, and no matter how many playthroughs I do, I will always link with him as much as I can. He's also like the only character who doesn't drink alcohol, which is so refreshing because these drunks need a swig of alcohol every second they can. It's sort of an underrated gag that the gang always ends up meeting at the nearest bar. Like, shoot, we need a game plan. We gotta find the closest bar. God, I love Crow. Sorry. Oh yeah, gameplay. Dude has like a bow. Yeah, I'll be honest, he's not the most exciting for me gameplay-wise, but I still enjoy using him. As I said, he's sort of the anti-barrier character, until, well, he focuses on piercing enemies' barriers and poisoning. I think he's mad strong early game. His pestilence skill, while it does have a cooldown, is basically a free fight skip with how strong it is during the beginning. I really like the skill he can learn that lets him attempt to poison a random enemy at the start of a fight, as his Envenom skill does limit breaking damage to poisoned enemies. He has a fun kid, and I generally found myself using all of his abilities. He's also probably the best contender for being the game's only healer with his Conduce skill. With a certain weapon, that skill can even target the full party. It's not much, but it's not like any other character has a valuable healing skill. I'd be interested to hear if anyone attempted to play a resistance-focused healing Crow. Kiyota... You know, Kiyota was fighting a losing battle against me from the very start. She had a lot to prove, and I hate to say it, but, you know, not everyone can make it to the end of Dystopia. Someone has to die, and Kiyota as a character just bounced off me on the first playthrough. It's funny because Base didn't even write a scene for Kiyota's death on my first playthrough. Like, they didn't even consider that someone would let her die, telling me that it was the hardest outcome. Which, I mean, I guess Bass thought that people wouldn't find this character annoying. I mean, I don't hate her. I honestly know and talk to quite a few people like her. More often than not, the people I talk to are people like Kiyota. She's this girl with like these vines and flower magical powers that lives in Pon and is friends with Runi. She's into anime visual novels, Irage and all that stuff, kind of a nerd, and that's all I got. I didn't interact with her once because I was just more interested in other characters, which led to her demise. Though I will say, she goes out like an absolute boss, roasting the hell out of Morgalia. W. So thusly, on my second playthrough, I made it a mission to ensure Kiyota survived, and to at least hang out with her once or twice. I was on the Kiyota defense squad, and she was going to make it through this time. And I'll say that the base story doesn't do her too much justice, because when I actually hung out and talked to her, I began to like her more just from the stuff on her past that I learned about her. I think she just tricked me at first. You see her in her portraits, and you just assume that she's the upbeat, quirky comic relief, and that's not really it. She's very emotional and protective of her friends, never having friends until now when the people around her are starting to die. I don't know, you really get a different picture on her through the Link conversations. Her whole thing about not wanting to die a virgin, her relationship with Runi, and all that stuff, I did not think the game would touch upon. So yeah, I do like Kiyota. She's very interesting and stands starkly in contrast to a lot of the other characters. She's weird, and I like that. But when I think of my playthrough and these characters, I can't help but to think that if someone has to die for the sake of the world, I mean, when compared to characters I know can die, like Crow or Chase, her impact on the world just seems so much smaller. She's not as important, which isn't fair, but I felt satisfied after my first playthrough. Luckily, the big update introduced a new character, and if he can be the character that dies, then yeah, I'd be satisfied with that. Kiyota's gameplay definitely wasn't doing any favors either. Like, she's got this setup stuff with Sprout. You put the vine trap on someone and they take more damage from physical attacks, while altering some of her attacks, then the Sprout gives life drain. And by the time more characters showed up to join, I'm pretty unwilling to ever go back to her. And she's a mixed attacker? Buddy, I'll catch you later. Then when every stat is an attack stat, the term mixed attacker doesn't really have much meaning. All these characters are mixed attackers, but still. Okay, post-edit spacey here. I did mess around with Kiyota and Edgar, so I can talk about them a bit gameplay wise, at least early on. I messed around with them because they had Halloween costumes. You know, the Halloween update came out, and Bass is faster at making games than I am at making videos, so L on my end. But I get Kiyota now. She just needs to set up by using Sprout on an enemy, and you get Sprout by, I think it's just normal attacking. You normal attack an enemy, and it's like your second normal attack will Sprout them. And the idea behind a sprouted enemy is, I guess you don't want to kill them, because you can use them to do like Vine Trap, which then spreads to all enemies if that enemy has Sprout. I just don't like that it takes a bit to set up, but I do get her, and I think she is actually pretty fun. Like, her added damage with Vine Trap is mad useful, especially on like tanky foes and stuff. So yeah, I get Kiyota now. She's pretty fun. I want to do a playthrough where I can see the rest of her abilities though. Also, the Modotsky outfit, pretty cute. Though, I mean, I want to call this out, but, you know, Kiyota, your white pixel's showing, bruh. You gotta hide that, man. I can imagine a lot of people love this character, especially the people I know who are very similar to her. I'm just not good on emotional people, which is very ironic. People like her exhaust me, but hey, like I said, I know people like her, so I can vibe with her. She's cool. And she loves plants, like, bruh. Honestly, out of all these characters, I'd probably hang out with her the most, whether I'd want to or not. Let's talk Chase Evers. I swear my next playthrough is going to be a Chase playthrough, because I really do like her, though I did link with her quite a bit on my first run. Chase is dope. I like the blue hair, that's fire. Her mom's the Prime Minister of Vulcanite, Prime Minister Morgalia, who only really made it thanks to the memes made about her at her expense, turning around and making her a lovable fashion mommy in the eyes of many. Which I like that backstory because it just sounds so realistic to something that could happen nowadays, with how we treat famous people, with all the memes and jokes and AI videos, creating a new sort of person we see instead of the reality of who they are. Famous people being turned into comedic characters, where we associate them with those jokes rather than who they are. Yeah, anyways, Morgalia is a trash-ass mother who evicted Chase alongside doing far more bad things, and now wants her back to try and redeem herself. So yeah, it ends up sucking pretty bad for Chase that she does have to eventually go back to Vulcanite and reunite reluctantly with her mother, who has become obsessed with her more as an idea than as a person, not understanding who Chase is and that they are on opposite sides. And yeah, I didn't interact with Chase much on my hard mode playthrough, which led to her being the one to sacrifice herself, which really surprised me. I thought she'd be one of the safe characters, considering that normally at the end of the game, she becomes the new Prime Minister of Vulcanite. Well, now a different character takes that spot. I will say I do like her final conversation with Morgalia, who didn't want her here, instead wishing that Chase would live on. It's bittersweet, but I don't think Chase deserves it. I guess she can fall in love with someone too, maybe Akira, because I got this item from Morgalia, but it says it can only be worn by Chase and her lover. And well, her lover sure wasn't anyone on my party. Gameplay wise, Chase is just so fire, and ignoring the shitty pun, she's just fun. Her skills taking the idea of her HP in different ways, such as attacks that cost HP or attacks that deal more damage at lower HP. They just take the idea and create so many different skills with it that I feel like I can flow from skill to skill in any order I want and still create something synergetical. She's legit like a fighting game character, actually encouraging combos with moves like Flash Jab. Such a fun and creative character, and I need to do a playthrough where I use her throughout the whole time. Runi, or Irune. Man, you know when a character starts speaking to you in French, shit's about to get fucked. Runi is a pretty big character. I mean, she's right up there with Akira on the game's official art, as well as on the title screen. I feel like you aren't supposed to like her, at least at first. She's the mayor of Pon Pon Village, and is a high interest target by Zeta due to being synced with Gemini, which gives her a voice inside her head that sort of feeds off her anxieties. After schwacking Kale, she's pretty cautious to anyone that Zeta sends her way, so of course is hostile to Akira when they first meet, I honestly thought at first that this game was going to pull a siding with Runi versus siding with Barbados thing. 2 jerks, but one is less jerky. I'll let you decide on that. She's also an Esper, which is a whole can of worms on its own, but this allows her to read minds and basically destroy people just by delving into their head. Esper's got a bad rap due to gamers like Clyde, and at first glance, it doesn't seem like Runi is any better. Runi isn't a shitty person though. Sometimes in life, people just don't mess with each other. Even if they're on the same side, even if they both have good hearts, some people just aren't compatible, even if you think they would be. Runi and Akira kinda have that vibe, where they split more by the means of the scenario that they met one another in. Of course, eventually the two do become friends, but the player can also say no to this, which does seem to cause some interesting impacts on the story. While the choice is cool, this is what I'd like to personally label as an asshole choice, which are choices in games that are just clearly mean-spirited that you would only ever do if you're doing some sort of evil run or if you want to see how the other scenario plays out. There's no need to be mean to Runi. It's kinda clever how much of a villain she comes off as at first, when really she's just trying to protect her people, and has a lot of trouble going on in her life, from her family to her responsibilities. Like, shoot, you have voices in your head too? I feel that. Though, I guess mine isn't quite a demon. You'd have to really hold grudges to not like her, which for someone like me, if I can forgive her, anyone can. It's F too, because she's just trying to protect her village, and it still gets burned down anyways. And depending on your choices, she may lose even more. I think the scene between Runi and Eliza meeting is very important in terms of Runi's characters. How despite viewing Eliza as an enemy, she tries to talk to her instead of peering into her mind instantly, like she did with Akira. And I like how awkward it is, because Runi's just so used to looking into people's minds instead of trying to have a conversation with them. It shows a lot of character growth, very underrated scene, like I only realized what it's implying now while editing this video. Gameplay wise, she's the mage, high intelligence, spellcaster. It's hard to put these characters into any sort of traditional classes with how unique this game is. I think she's pretty powerful. On my first playthrough, I just spammed the hell out of like Tri-Mirror, I believe. That shit is the maths on Runi. If you like making enemies explode with colorful magic, peep her, she's the one for that. Play during October and you get to use the Witch's Wand or whatever, seasonal weapon. October is when the Runi stands come out to play. Be careful. Okay, next run, I need Edgar and Chase. Edgar is just about as rad as they come. Runi's brother, he's a cook that carried over his skills in the kitchen to that with a sword in combat, which I always thought was such a funny explanation to how he fights. He's quite literally cooking his enemies, bruh. He's a chill ass dude, has some of the coldest lines in the game, and some of the dopest moments. Like, I don't know if that was added, but damn, I don't remember him stabbing Clyde in the first run. And depending on your choices, he can sync up with Leo, and Edgar Leo is just a sick as hell design. Damn, he looks clean as hell. Sorry, I got a thing for dudes with fire/elemental heads and white eyes. It's a specific thing. Gameplay wise, he's basically Sonic the Hedgehog. There's only one thing that matters to him, one thing he lives for, and that's speed. If he's not going fast, he's not alive. He's the kind of guy that thinks those deep-ass Sonic quotes on the box arts and random promotional materials for Sonic games are high-key inspirational. In which case, then at least I won't be the only one, because these lines are fire. And that's not a pun, because this dude is all about lightning. His attacks scale off his agility, which makes him probably the best auto attacker in the game, as he basically always doubles. I used him quite a bit through my first playthrough, but I never felt like I entirely understood his gameplay. Something about him just always felt weak. So maybe if I play again with a more Edgar focused run, I'd be able to see some things. He might just have some cookage going on. And yes, that shitty pun was intentional. Good catch, gamer. Okay, I'm back, yo. Post-edit spacey. Edgar is now in Link, and that's kind of cool. Sadly, I didn't get to check out all the characters' costumes. I'm not going to talk about Runi's or Eliza's, because I just don't have time to play through the game again, man. I want to, though. Next October. If the costumes come back next October, you know, maybe I'll be down. I don't know if I'll even be alive then. So yeah, I'm not saying I didn't play Edgar before on my first run, but I just didn't really remember much of Edgar. But yeah, he's fun. I like him. He has some really fun abilities. I think the thing that effed me up is I used his imbue skill, which like edited his normal attack to be better, but it still sucked ass. And I don't know, I just got a lot more success out of him just from the short early game I played with him. But maybe he does fall off a bit. I do, like his Chaos Wave ability or whatever it's called, that's fun. I'm a big fan of that ability, but it's like, damn, it's not always there. So yeah. Also, shout out to this Edgar clip where I just didn't care about his health and attacking an enemy with a spike shield and just died on it. Nice stuff, man. And I do think the chaos thing adds a lot to him. Like, you hit all enemies, you build up hype, then you use a chaos wave. I like these Halloween attacks, man. But even on his own, Edgar is still pretty fun. But with his Halloween ability especially, I think this is him at his peak. Okay, I was gonna save this guy until later, but he like low-key causes problems for everyone, and I keep bringing him up. Lunez. This dude died on my first playthrough, but it wasn't my fault. You couldn't save him yet. He wasn't playable. And low-key, I mean, if he can still die at Pon Pon, I mean, I wouldn't mind that. Basically, he's this ultra edgelord that just spends the game asking for people to kill him. He's just, oi, bruv, oi, mate, fuck you, in it, mate, in it. Then you find out why he hates himself so much, and it's like, bro, really? That's it? That's not my big problem with Lunez. It's because after the first playthrough, he feels like he just robs others of their moments and times. Like, in the ruins, we're currently chasing after Genesis, Fredek, and Kekan. There's this whole moment where the group gets split up, falling down a hole to this water area, where we meet Fredek. This segment greatly extends the dungeon, and we also get to fight Scorpio in this cool area, Fredek joining along to fight with us. We learn a bit more about Fredek through this, about how he's basically just a loser who's only going along with this because his sister wants to and he probably doesn't even want to be here, and how he hides behind his cool, strong persona, only letting his true emotions show when desperate. He also almost Ligma's Runi, come on! Not even to mention hitting Edgar with the Nanya. Dude almost scored a 2-piece. He makes a promise that he'll try to stop Genesis from being an enemy as well. We eventually meet up with Kekan and Genesis, where Fredek, showing his weakness but still honesty, fails to attempt to convince Genesis, and we fight the three. Kekan reveals that she pushed Fredek into the ditch. No real reason why, but perhaps it was because he insulted the priest from earlier in Bone Town. And we eventually fight Kekan with Scorpio, where Scorpio syncs with Genesis. The two walk away, with Fredek promising that he'll convince Genesis to be a friend. However, rewind, with Lunez in the party, the group doesn't fall down the pit. Instead, Lunez pulls the three out as everyone's like, oh my god, OMG Lunez, you're so cool and strong. Which, yeah, is still a pretty dope moment. Gotta appreciate all the unique sprites and animations for scenes like these. But then we miss out on all that dungeon, and on getting to know Fredek before Genesis. Now we just meet the three together, and have a very short dialogue without all the promise stuff before fighting them, and then fighting Kekan with Scorpio. Which, by the way, because we skipped the first fight against Scorpio, we don't get the tutorial text explaining that our party members will get trapped in a sand tomb, so new players might get confused on this boss's mechanics because they were never taught it. After which, the sync happens, the two go on a walk, and nothing else is said. This is rough because it takes a chunk away from Fredek, just to show, hey, Lunez does care about us, and it makes Fredek and Genesis sort of fade and blend together. This is super picky, but it also makes later dialogue nonsensical. See, when Genesis joins up later on, she apologizes to Runi for calling her shorty. However, she only calls Runi that in the extended scene if you fell down the pit, but since that didn't occur, she's apologizing for something that never happened. If that wasn't enough, Lunez steals attention from Crow, and that's when you got me effed up. I don't know if this was like a link level thing, because I was linking with Lunez a lot, but at the part of the game where Akira gets caught doing Boneface and gets sent to Carnival Night Zone, 3 party members go out to save them, Genesis, Detritus, and Crow. However, this time, Lunez decided to go instead of Crow. Which, while I admit I do love his interaction with Sho here, where Sho's like, what the hell is wrong with this guy? We lose the moment of during the dating show where we need to choose someone to participate with. Instead of Crow explaining that he can't be seen on TV because he doesn't want his wife to notice him, we instead get, oi bruv, fuck off, oi mate, in it. Like, I don't know, maybe it's determined by who has the higher link level, with who ends up being the third party member here. Lunez just feels like a fanfiction OC that got slipped into the story. Edgy dude that annoys everyone, takes the spotlight from other characters to show how cool he is, and is overpowered as hell to boot. I don't have a problem with him as a character, it's how he was implemented. And I suppose that this is all a byproduct of him being a character introduced post-launch, where the game's script, story, and scenes were already written out, so it's undeniable that to make Lunez important, he would have to get shoved into scenes in a way that would be noticeable and uncomfortable to people who have already played the game at first. He needed to step on others' feet in order to stand on his own and not fade into the background. But as effed as it sounds, I like the original story more when he did just die back in Pon Pon. And gameplay wise, I mean, have you been seeing the footage I've been playing? Have you been wondering why I mostly showed battle footage from my normal mode playthrough? Bog Bash. Lunez is by far the most overpowered character in this game, and I think he kind of ruins what I find fun about it. To explain in a way that we can all understand, he's the Bog Champ. Bog Bash is a skill that can be pushed to attack again at the cost of MP. It attacks all enemies and it ignores their barrier, essentially ignoring half their HP. More often than not, the game freezes when I push this attack, causing all the sounds to stack and destroy my ears. Well, that's kind of funny to be honest. I did have to lower my volume whenever I bog bashed a huge group of enemies just in preparement. I'm not kidding. Bog Bash single-handedly clears 95% of the fights in this game. This includes entire boss encounters that I struggled more on in normal mode. And I know what you're thinking. Spacey, I can read, gamer. Bog Bash can't be spammed. Look how long its cooldown is. Well, if you can read, then read this. Lunez's passive ability makes it so the first skill he uses in a battle has its cooldown reset. So I just need to not use Bog Bash again, assuming the enemies somehow survived the first Bog Bashing, which if that's the case, he has Poison Wave. By now he probably has at least 1 to 3 hype from hitting all enemies, and Poison Wave is a powerful attack that strikes in extra time according to how much hype Lunez has. But it's game breaking. Like, just look at the total damage I did with this character. Nobody even came close. Even mimics don't stand a chance against this dude, as he has both powerful physical and magical attacks. His skills use his attack and intelligence stat, which luckily his weapons provide, alongside potential weapon mods and gear to farther increase it. It really does ruin the game for me, and what it's built up with its cooldown system, it just takes it all away from me pressing the funny button. But, you know... It's kind of fun though, at least for like the first half of the game. Having a dedicated delete button really sped things up. Honestly, it was like playing New Game Plus with how strong he was. And I was sorta in a rush with this second playthrough. I mean, I wasn't skipping dialogue or scenes or anything, but being able to skip encounters sure sped things up. His moves are mad satisfying too. It only got boring because I was doing the same thing for several hours. Sure, I could switch him out, but then I'd be in a battle thinking, wow, this fight would already have been over if I had Lunez with me after one turn had passed. Lunez kind of became an enabler too. He made it so I could have any party member I want in the third slot, as he was so strong that they wouldn't be able to act anyways. But when the rare chance did come, Crow paired up surprisingly well with him, as they both had attacks that could ignore barrier, making it very easy to dispatch enemies without even thinking about their pink health. Okay, I've been too negative on this guy. I will say, he does fall apart a bit on longer fights, most notably boss fights that he can't skip. He starts pretty explosive, but after his first couple attacks and his passive deactivating, it's kinda like, well, now what? But there is something fitting in me defeating the final boss with Bog Bash. Also say I do like his design, like, yeah, he's hella dripped out. And I do like some of his battle animations as well. Maybe I'm blowing him out of proportion, but damn. And you know, I've been thinking about his character and story, and I do like it. He acts like a horrible person that's done terrible things, and wants nothing more than to die, acting like an asshole to everyone. When in reality, he just feels survivor guilt for all the people he watched die, and thinks he's a terrible person because of it. It's a very interesting direction to take with the character, rather than just making him a serial killer or something. Saying he's done all this shit and making others think he's evil, but then understanding the sad reality of it all. And that's something you can only once again find out through linked conversations with him. Honestly, reflecting on him and all, I think he's kinda cool. Yeah, the script for this video is a mess. His gameplay is fun, and I think I'd enjoy him more if he was a bit more balanced. I get the idea behind him that he's supposed to make you hate him, eventually helping and caring for the group. Not that he warmed up to us, but the idea that he always cared, as shown by how much he wants to protect Akira. It just sucks that to get those scenes, he has to take away from others, which is unfortunate because of his character being this way. He takes from likable characters just to be a jerk, but he needs to be a jerk for his character to work. Okay, we need to talk about someone else. Congrats, you survived the Lunez rant. Maybe it says something that he's the character I've talked about the most. Okay, next up, damn, which one should I talk about first? I guess Genesis. I had quite the mixed relationship with Genesis. When I first met her at the apartments, I'm like, yeah, she seems cool. Clyde probably is an asshole. At this point, I had no clue which characters would be party members and which wouldn't. Then when the group meet her later at the ruins when she fights them, I absolutely hated her. In the Lunez version, she wasn't nearly as cold, but originally I was like, wow, the absolute worst character. Get out of here, you trash. Your brother's pretty cool though. But then she started hanging out with the group and she's like, so f***ing funny. I think it was this line here that totally won me on her, and now she's just one of my favorite characters. She's basically a sexual escort slash assassin, getting paid to bang or just have some sad ass people cry to her. She's also super protective and caring towards her brother Fredek, even if the two end up living apart after the events of the game. I wish I could say more on her, but she hasn't been a character I've gotten to hang out with too much. Next run will be a Genesis run, I swear. I do think it's very interesting that she and Fredek are options with the first activity point choice. Like, keep in mind, that's between Genesis, Fredek, Barbados, who ends up dying, and Rosie, which I'll get to. This is a big choice, and I kind of wonder what happens if I were to spend it on Genesis or Fredek. And if I were to do a run focused on either of them, I would. Another reason I like Genesis is her gameplay. I already briefly touched on her. Her gameplay is about afflicting status effects, with her card moves being Flash to combo into Spark Plug. Her passive, Bully, lets her deal extra damage to enemies with status effects. But not only that, she also has Assassinate. Assassinate is a really powerful move, but requires full hype to use, which makes building luck ideal in order to land crits. I don't know, it's like a fighting game character, using all these combo moves, and eventually building up enough meter to do the big attack. I like that. It gives her goals to work towards in battle, and of course obvious synergy with other party members, being able to poison to help with Crow's attacks, alongside benefiting from other party members and their status effects. I used her a lot, but I need a playthrough where I really commit to using her. Fredek is such a fun character. Like, I can guarantee that out of the 4 people the player can hang out with at the beginning of this game, this dude calling you a noob lord at the arcade was the one that people picked the least. He's a big nerd that acts like some evil dark lord or something, but it's really just a loser. I think he has my favorite Link conversations in the game, because he often gets pushed into the background while the more serious characters talk. And these Link conversations are the really only time he drops his act and talks for real about his feelings. It was so cool to learn about his relationship with Clyde, which I feel like so few people actually found out about, as from what I heard, people kinda disregard him, which is a shame because I feel like there's a lot going on with him. This line right here might actually be my favorite line of dialogue in this game. Dude also jams out with the guitar in one of the best scenes of the game. And he's just funny. I think he's one of the best characters in Dystopia. Heavily slept on. Gameplay wise though, I gotta do a Fredek run, I swear. Yeah, I don't think I ever really understood him or used him enough to get him. With some characters, I see the synergy and what they're going for, and I just didn't with him. But I will say the fireball skill is pretty fun because haha push skill dopamine. I need to try him more on a future run, alongside a myriad of other characters, including the next one. We're nearing the end, we got 3 more. Eliza, or Eliza. Eliza is a W character. I don't know how she survives this game. No way Zaz just lets her go like that. But at least she's smart. She knew how to play the game and she knew when to betray him, leaving Zaz to join up with Akira. She's the lady with a plan, and makes things happen, ultimately becoming the president of Zeta, known as Utopia now. You can argue she's plot armored and story overpowered, but I think she deserves it. Starting out as someone with no friends or family, which got her sought after by Zeta, where she essentially became their slave, to the point of constantly bearing witness and assisting horrible atrocities, even being the one to directly fire Crow and leaving him to die. I guess she's also the love interest for Akira. I wouldn't say it's an asshole choice to reject her, but she's done so much for Akira and cares so much about them. Though that reasoning may be sort of reflective of a problem I used to have when it came to relationships in my life, where several times I felt like I'd have to fall in love with someone just because they were nice and cared for me, as if I owe them something back for their actions. Yeah, that one took a while to get rid of. So maybe that's where I'm coming from with this idea. It's toxic reasoning, but at the end of the day, the two like each other, and they're happy being together, so I don't see a problem. Even if I personally always saw Akira as a sort of punk that probably couldn't hold a relationship with someone for long, already being the ex-date friend of Rosie, and I personally think they'd want to stay out of the spotlight and do their own thing, drinking at bars with their friends and just hanging out, like the stoner they used to be. So being with someone as professional and important as Eliza seems weird. Who knows, maybe it does work out. Gameplay wise, Eliza is Gun, and yet another character I can't really speak on too much. I want to use her more. I mean, I like her rapid fire skill because, well, haha push skill fun. I always make sure to use that skill at least once just to experience it. Seems like a fun ass character. It's just so hard where there's already so many characters I find fun to use, and she joins so late. A lot of her skills seem influenced by her defense and resistance stats, so she's like a mixed defender, but in the way that also makes her a mixed attacker. She has some complicated ass skills that I'd like to delve into on some playthrough. Now, we get to the last 2 party members, and these are the weird ones. On my first playthrough, I used my 1 activity point and chose to hang out with Rosie. I was surprised to see she had special art as if she was a recruitable character, because she sorta dies throughout the story. You never technically get to use her in battle. Rosie is the sister to Edgar and Runi, and has a strained relationship with Runi, something that Runi has been wishing to fix, but it's clear that Rosie will probably never forgive her, and I think the reason why is because she wiped the memory of their mother. The two never even get to have a full, honest conversation with one another. Hell, I'm pretty sure if you refuse being Runi's friend, you actually get a link point with Rosie. She's also Akira's ex. Maybe it's talked about in one of Runi's link conversations, but I'm not sure why they broke up. Regardless, they are still good friends, and it's obviously Rosie still cares about them, enough to risk her life to warn Akira about Barbados coming to kill them, which may have proved to be a fatal decision, as she ends up getting found out by another Esper, a Zodiac hunter named Clyde, who basically lobotomizes her, where she is then taken away to Zaz's laboratory. It's there, her new purpose is revealed to be the host for that of the Zodiac stone Virgo. Virgo ends up syncing with her, but denies helping Zeta Core, leaving her stuck in containment, fulfilling her purpose in helping revive humanity. During the final dungeon, the group chooses to go and save Rosie. While she appears normal, Runi recognizes this as an act, as Virgo reveals herself, explaining that Rosie is brain dead, and she's basically keeping her on life support. I think what's interesting about this conversation is Akira calling Virgo Rosie, but Virgo saying that to Akira, she's Virgo. Virgo was found by Akira during a flashback with Kale, with Kale letting Akira take credit for the stone to help them with their rank, commenting that it seems to have chosen them. And we don't get a lot between the relationship of the two, but maybe Virgo wanted to sync with Akira, instead of being taken and used to resurrect the humans, resenting Akira and furthermore blaming them for what happened to Rosie. That or now synced with Rosie and having her thoughts in mind, maybe Rosie was more hurt by Akira and what happened that caused them to break up. Sadly, I never got much of a conclusion on this story. I think the newest update would give a more proper ending to what happened to Rosie, other than just being in a hospital with an unknown status. But unfortunately, I didn't get Rosie on the hard mode playthrough, as you kinda need to choose between her and the next character I want to talk about. Firstly though, gameplay. Being basically a playable Zodiac character, she's kind of a god character, having high stats in all categories, with a passive that ignores the hype and exhaustion system, giving her the ability to utilize some skills in a new way, while being hindered on more hype-dependent skills. And she has a ton of skills, mostly focused on her intelligence stat, being all sorts of spells of a variety of elements, notably a healing spell, and of course, a fun push skill in the form of Starstorm. Sadly, I didn't get to use her much, because she is the latest character that joins the party. Maybe I'll go for her on my next run, as I assume there's more dialogue now with the new update. However, for my hard mode playthrough, I got Rogue. Rogue is a mysterious asshole assassin that becomes a reoccurring enemy for the group, seemingly having powers to summon demons and a knack for giving the middle finger. It's revealed around midway in the game that Rogue is actually Kale. Runi didn't kill him when he was sent after her, instead choosing to go to the Vulcanite Resistance and becoming a leader for it, where he was captured, tortured, and had a bomb placed inside him, being forced to work against Akira, with the threat of being killed constantly hanging over him. I can't believe Show survives this plot. This shit's unredeemable. Rogue's final encounter is on the train when heading towards Zeta for the final dungeon. In my first playthrough, I fought him here, alongside Cancer, where he afterwards died. I mean, in my defense, he couldn't be saved yet. During my hard playthrough, however, there was no fight. Instead, Kale putting his faith in Akira being able to heal him as he sets off the bomb. With the help of Akira and Cancer, which sounds weird out of context, but I mean the Zodiac Stone, Kale survives and joins the party. Everyone, including Kale himself, admits that he was kind of a screw-up that made so many bad decisions that led him to this point. But despite that, still cared about Akira, and forgives them for killing his brother, which even he can admit, knowing what he knows now, that Barbados was nothing but a murderer. And even though we don't get much of him outside pretending to be an asshole to his best friend so he doesn't die, he still seems like a totally chill and nice guy. But as brought up by Asterisk later on, Rosie and Kale are on different sides of fate, and it's not possible to save both of them. As in this run, Virgo fights against us, where we kill her. Rosie subsequently failing to sync with Virgo and thusly dying. I'm gonna be honest, there's no ideal character to survive here for me, because I like both of them. They're both people that got screwed over unfairly by Zeta, and it's sad that there isn't a world where they both get to live. It's also interesting that it's sort of a choice between Runi and Akira, one character being Runi's sister, the other being Akira's friend. But when thought of like that, legit nobody but Akira is happy to see Kale alive. Like, nobody likes or cares about this guy. Meanwhile, several party members, including Akira, are glad to see Rosie alive. Well, somewhat alive. I guess the funny part about this all is that I don't even know what causes me to choose who to save here. I guess it's the first hangout point in the game. In my hard playthrough, I chose to be with Barbados, under some belief that this would cause a change in the plot, while also believing that hanging out with Barbados would just serve to be a cheap gotcha for when you find out that he dies, and ultimately being a wasted activity point. Though no lie, up until my end of the first playthrough, I really believed there was some way to save Barbados. But I think too much of the plot revolves around his actions and death, so that it needs to happen. It's kind of weird that hanging out with Barbados would have any significance in saving Kale. It's not like he knew of this, and the dude doesn't even like his brother. But maybe it's some impact on Akira healing. I don't know how this all plays out now if I were to choose the Virgo route, but damn if this isn't one of the tougher decisions of Dystopia. Though if it is the first link that determines who lives, what would happen if he chose to hang out with Fredek or Genesis? Would they both die? Who would do that? Does something special happen if I choose to hang with them? That's something I'm really curious on. But before anything, I'll go over his gameplay. Rogue fights with me mallet and throw hammer like Mario bro. That's one of his funner attacks, with him throwing extra hammers per hype. Also quite enjoy his powerful hammer quake skill that targets all. I guess he's sort of a mixed attacker too. He has some generic fire shard abilities, and also put some cool fire shards on him of varying degrees of usefulness. He joins earlier enough that I can still do the lab grind with him, and luckily I was playing hard mode, where my reward for doing so was an extra dungeon at the end of the game, in the form of a door teleporter maze. Yay. Also, for some strange reason, he can't equip Kale's jacket. Like, bro, that's literally your jacket. You get it from the Barbados fight, and I think you can miss it. So I get if he doesn't want to wear it because it reminds him of Barbados, but I mean, other than that, it's an Akira exclusive armor, and they sure don't mind wearing it. It's kind of sad how late some of these characters join the party. Like, damn. Give me the Dystopia randomizer, where I can get some of these characters earlier and see how that messes with things. Maybe that just goes to show how much I like the combat in this game. Regardless, that's my thoughts on the party members, and yeah, this was even longer than my talk on the gameplay. Told you I like these characters as much as I like the gameplay, so I suppose we should wrap things up by talking about the villains now too. I'm not going to go into everyone because this video is going on long enough. Like, Mogalia, do I need to talk about her? Shitty mom, oddly realistic, screw her. Sho, funny guy, but screw him for what he did to Kale. He's a piece of garbage, and I can't believe we don't get to kill him. Though he is kind of cute without his mask. Damn it! Clyde is as dumpster as they come, and it's like, for what? I guess he's really just a state suck-up for Zeta, but I just gotta wonder what they did to win him over so much. Robon? I think Barbados sums him up perfectly.
Watch it, shit show.
So I guess his connection with the church alongside Kekken is interesting. And I do respect the 420 to 69 rank up. Good grind, my gamer. Detritus 12? The Meatbags line is pretty funny, and she has the best battle song in the game. Or, well, had. The latest update actually changed 12's battle theme, along with Zaz's, so I'll have to bring that up there too. Like, damn Bass, give me some time to make this video. It's already becoming outdated. But yeah, the new theme slaps too. It seems to be original, which makes me wonder if, like, Bass is gonna slowly, like, replace all the music. Probably not, but, you know. But I feel like she might be a more relevant character in Dystopia 2 or something. understanding her so-called father was a piece of garbage, and her brother Detritus was in the right. Like, I could see her being a playable character or something in the sequel, depending on the direction that base takes it. But I think the two main baddies worth talking about is, of course, Akira and Zaz. Screw Akira, bruh. Unredeemable garbage character. She acts all nice to Eliza, but I guarantee that shit's just gaslighting. Akira is just a despicable person, working with Zaz not because she cares about resurrecting humanity, but just because she wants everyone to suffer. She hates everyone and everything. She's also technically behind what happened to Rosie, and that's unforgivable. And when we finally call her out on this shit, she whips out the trauma backstory to make us feel bad for her. Though I'll admit that scene is pretty excellent. And I do like how the finale takes place on Akari's birthday, which happens to be the current day you're playing the game. Like, the game actually checks your computer's date. Through learning her past and her abusive father, we learn that she's been synced with Capricorn for her entire life. At the end of the game, as we send the Zodiac Stones away, Capricorn asks us to take care of Akira, which if you're matching through the text, you may accidentally hit the yes button in response. You know, I wouldn't call this an asshole decision, but in all seriousness, I chose yes on both of my playthroughs, albeit matched on the second one. Like, that crap counts instantly. I'm not sure if this changes much, like maybe Akira can die, but considering Bass has already kind of confirmed that she's the main character of Dystopia 2, does it really matter? If she dies here, does it get revealed in Dystopia 2 that it's the same game but the Akira we're playing as is like a clone? That'd be funny. Definitely going to be an interesting main character to use, but that's far from now. Zaz, the big bad. President of Zeta and seeker of human resurrection, he himself being someone who has lived over hundreds of years and is certain that he'll live thousands more. And, you know, I mean, I'm sorry. Maybe I got some plot details here wrong, but I think he's the hero. Or at the very least, some aspect of the hero is within him, as he reveals in this one scene. But besides that, he's pretty simple. He wants to resurrect humans, where he will then step down as president and force all other species to be third-class citizens, evicting them from their homes to make way for the humans. Thusly, he doesn't give a shit about anyone, as everyone is nothing but a tool for him. But at the same time, oddly has a policy of not killing anyone himself, while also having that moment where he lets Eliza go on a vacation, leading her to the betrayal that I feel was pretty obvious to everyone, which is pretty confusing. As he says, he's a man of his word, so maybe he's just strict about his rules, but I mean, he's also the one that denied Akira's resignation. He's got an iconic ass voice, and his fight is a super cool and unique idea for a battle, and a challenging final form. Super effed up that he like resurrects one of the party members you killed throughout the game to fight you, damn. Also, he has like the Sonic 3D Blast blue and yellow shield thing going on, which I don't know if that was intentional, but that's what it makes me think of. Yeah, I'm definitely the only one on that one. Ultimately, he does succeed in his plans of resurrecting the humans, something he was always certain of, the only uncertainty being if he was going to be there to witness it. As odd as it sounds, I don't really have much to say about this guy. He's relatively simple. It's really all of his workers that do all the effed up and interesting stuff throughout the game. He is kind of funny at times with how little patience and hatred he has for everyone around him. Like, he does not care about a single one of these people, knowing full well that when the humans come, they'll be out of the picture. But, yeah. What a cast of characters. A part of me wonders if I should have just done a play-by-play of the game instead. Maybe this was more interesting. But then it's like, what playthrough would I even talk about? Despite 2 playthroughs, I feel like there's still quite a bit of the game that I don't know about, from things I haven't seen to what causes what. And as much as I wish I could just open the game in rpgmaker to see what connects to what, it is pretty cool not knowing. Like, does it F me up that I still don't know the password to this computer? Yeah, but who knows? Maybe I'll find out some run. It is neat that every time I play this game, I'll have a different experience, having no real clue what causes what. Like, who's gonna do what this time? Let's just play through and see what run I get. I definitely missed out on a lot. Like, I was looking at posts from legendary RPG player Bugfragged, title deservingly earned from somehow managing to play through the entirety of Everlong. Twice! And it's like they were playing a different game with some of the things they encountered.
Yo, post-edit Spacey here. I just finished watching Bugfrag's run, and holy shit, like what the hell did I just watch? Like, that was actually kind of mind-blowing, just how many directions this game can go. It was very entertaining. They quite clearly did the worst run possible, and wow. I just didn't know how much of a disaster the game could go down with the story. Very entertaining, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, after seeing the end of that run, I don't even feel equipped to do a review on this game. Definitely not one 2 hours long. Because what I just described was my experience with 2 playthroughs of this game. But there's clearly so much more that I don't know about. And I just want to dig back into it. I want to do another playthrough. I want to try some different things. But I just don't have the time. So yeah, I missed out on a bit. But hey, all the more fun of discovery for the next playthrough, right? It's pretty clear I love this game, but it's not without its reservations. Is that the right word? I don't know, man. I don't think I can recommend this game without mentioning that there are some expectations to be had when going into it. This is a pretty ambitious game by mainly one person, and y'all can kind of guess what that entails. It's janky hella. And I know I just said the J word, but I'll explain myself. Both of my runs of Dystopia, I encountered very different glitches and unintentional things. Maybe the worst one was Crow just randomly being removed from my party in the hard playthrough for a couple hours. So when he did come back, he was just mad underleveled. And without my boy, I tell ya, the separation anxiety was starting to kick in. Though at the same time, it did finally make me use a party of new characters instead of just Akira, Crow, and one other person. So maybe it was a good thing. Also, I guess there's the random typos, which I definitely don't care about. Which, maybe I should. Stuff like that just always felt like nitpicks to me. But then again, if I saw a comma or like a missing comma or something in something I made, I'd be like, I did it. I created the worst game ever made. But I don't think it's a big deal, at least not to me. But I guess if it was my project, I'd be like, I've ruined the game, man. I just never lost that feeling in my playthroughs of Dystopia, that at any moment in this game I could get soft-locked for doing something like backtracking when I wasn't supposed to. It never happened, but still. This all partially isn't worth bringing up, because Base has fixed nearly everything I've mentioned. I'm never one to do bug reports and such, even if it's really helpful, just because I feel like that's mean and I don't have the right to potentially judge and critique others on their work. Which is funny, because I'm basically judging games right now by making videos on them. You gotta understand that I'm an amalgamation of thoughts that as a whole doesn't really make a ton of sense. And maybe I'm also just a shitty person. Regardless of any potential hiccups, it's small bumps to what a cool and unique project Dystopia is. Dystopia, a post-human RPG, is a total gem of a game. There's this undeniably warm feeling I get every time I finish the game, despite the consequences of my choices. It's such an upbeat and hopeful ending that just makes me say, God, this game rules. Games rule. It's just one of those games, you know? Dystopia is just such a breath of fresh air with its myriad of differing systems and approaches to battle. Its cast of varying characters and choices that alter the story. It can be argued that all of its systems was just throwing a bunch of paint at the wall and seeing what came out of it. But that's kind of what I love about it. It really does remind me of my first big project. Just throw every idea that sounds like fun and see what we create. Sure, players might not interact with certain ones, but luckily there's like 5 other ideas that they can enjoy. It's just such a breath of fresh air for a game. No roast, I love all. But I'm tired of modern turn-based RPGs and indie games that boast their removal of features for a less complex experience. Like, hey, Why are you taking out all the fun stuff? The indie zone is where we can embrace niche ideas from hardcore fans of the genre. We know our work won't be touched by Normie John, so we're free to get as creative and magical as we please. These games are made by ourselves, for ourselves, baby. And DYZTOPIA is a shining example of the kind of games I love. It's weird, it's complex, and it's made by someone who clearly loves this genre with a burning passion to create their own art from it with their incredibly colorful mind. What else can I say? DYZTOPIA is an indie RPG gem, and I recommend it fully. I don't like talking on devs' future plans, as things can always change, especially when it comes to indie projects, but it seems like Base is on the works with DYZTOPIA 2, seemingly targeting the newish genre of paper-like RPGs. Would be very interesting to see how Bass handles the choices made in DYZTOPIA 1 onto this game. Could go the approach of trying to ignore everything that happened in Diz 1, or potentially just ask the player if they played the first game at the start, then answering some questions on the choices they made, or if they said no, just randomize the choices. Regardless of what the game ends up being, I have faith in it. Bass knocked it out of the park with DYZTOPIA 1. It's a banger-ass game that I know I'll be heading back towards again in the future. When people talk about new and great indie turn-based RPGs, it's this, man. These are the games they should be talking about. Links in the description if you want to check this game out, or at least want to support Gamer Bass. I'ma catch y'all in the next one. Shoutouts to Golly Gamers, Celtris, and Kenshiago. Thanks for everyone who's still believing in me, but damn, bruh. I stopped working on the Gates to Infinity video so I could work on something shorter. This was still over an hour long. Yeah, let me explain myself. I know I was hinting and building up this massive video I was working on, and I finished the voice recording for the Gates to Infinity video, and it's like, the Gates to Infinity video is 8 hours long. Nobody's going to watch that. So now I don't know what to do. Should I drop the video? I mean, it's part of this whole PMG retrospective thing I'm doing, so maybe I need to finish it out of obligation. Do people care enough about Gates to watch an 8-hour video on it? Let me know, I guess, because maybe I'll rush it out faster. Because now, my current game plan is to just slowly work on the Gates to Infinity video every time I release a video. And eventually, over the course of a couple of months, the video will be done, and I'll just randomly drop an 8-hour video on y'all. But for now, I want to talk about all these games that I've been playing and meaning to do videos on. DYZTOPIA wasn't the only game I played and been wanting to do a video on for several months now. And the amount of games that I've been meaning to talk about for literal years is higher than you'd think. All in due time though, I got a game I need to work on, in a world that I'm trying to survive in. Feel free to support me if y'all want. You get my videos a week early, 7 whole days. Doesn't matter if you donate for $2 or $200. I appreciate that shit. But always make sure to take care of yourself first. I ain't worth nothing. But it's time I start working on something else. Can't just stay here and talk all day, right? So I'm gonna head out. Y'all stay easy and chill for the rest of the day, eh? Have a good one.